Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make a simple translator app using a tool called Flutter. If you're already not familiar with Flutter, it's like this cross-platform tool that lets you create apps for both iOS and Android using a single code base. If you don't have Flutter installed already, you could go to the flutter.dev website, click Get Started, and install Flutter on your machine. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, but you can also use Flutter on Android Studio. If you're on Mac or Windows, you're going to go to the top left and you're going to click View, and then you should see Command Prompt. Just click that. And if you have to make sure you have the Flutter extension installed on Visual Studio Code, and if you're using Android Studio, make sure you have Flutter installed. And you're going to click New Project, or search up Flutter and then New Project, and you're going to give it a name. So I'm just going to call mine YT_translator, and you're going to hit enter. I'm going to make the app in my downloads folder, so I'm just going to create a new folder and give it the same name, and create, and select folder to create project in, and it's going to create the project for you. Now, when it finishes creating, you're gonna go into your lib folder, or yeah, it could automatically open for you, and you're just gonna get rid of all this extra stuff, like these green comments. Just get rid of those, and just clean up. Like, just delete theme data. You can delete this comment right here. You can get rid of this. Get rid of this function in integer. Get rid of the rest of these comments. Get rid of these two text widgets and this floating action, and get rid of this last comment. And this should be your app file. And make sure you have the center and column widgets, because you're going to be using those. Oh, I forgot to get rid of this. And yeah, this should be your main.dart file, and you're just going to save that by hitting Command or Control S. After cleaning up your main.dart file, what we're going to do is we're going to install a package called Translator, and it basically uses Google Translate to translate any phrase or sentence you want to any language you want to translate it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to head to the pubspec.yaml file. It's going to be in your project root directory, and you're just going to click that. And we're going to head over to this website called pub.dev, and this is basically where you download packages for Flutter. And we're just going to search up Translator, and it should be the first one. And to install it, we're just going to click installing. Copy this, just like Translator, and copy it. Head over to your pubspec.yaml file, and under Cupertino icons, you can just copy and paste this and save your pubspec.yaml file. And it should install. And now the last thing we gotta do is scroll down, and where it says import and then package translator/translator.dart, you're just gonna copy that, and then you're gonna scroll up, and under package flutter material.dart, you're gonna paste that line of code and save your Dart file. Now that we have our project set up, we can start building our app. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our class_homepage state class, and then in the center and column widget and under children, you're going to build like everything here. So the first widget or building block to the app we're going to add is called a flexible. And what this basically does is it like splits the screen or in your app in half, or like to any ratio you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two of these flexible widgets, so we could have one half of the screen for like entering the text you want to translate, and then the second half is going to be like the text into like the translated language. So we're going to create this flexible widget, and then for the next thing we're going to add this thing called flex, and that's like the ratio and how much you want like the flexible widget to like expand, and we're going to set that to 1. And then we're going to give it a child parameter, and we're just going to give it a container. And a container is basically just like a box with like, you could set the height, width, and color and stuff with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it to the width, and that's going to be double dot infinity. And what that basically does is it like gives the container any available, like as much space as it needs. And we're going to do the same with the height, and double dot infinity. And for color, you're just going to type color and then colors dot and then any color you want. So for this one, I'm going to choose blue. And yeah, and we're going to copy this flexible widget and we're going to paste it under. And we're just going to change this container's color to purple. Or you could do anything you want. Now that we have our 2 flexible containers, it's time to run the app. In Visual Studio Code, there's going to be like a little triangle button. You're going to click that, and you're going to click Run and Debug. On Android Studio, there should be a Run button, and when you click Run and Debug, it's going to say if you want to start in iOS or Android. For iOS, you're going to have Xcode installed and set that up. And for Android, same thing. You're going to have Android Studio installed and set that up. I'll leave videos in the description on how you can do that. So we're going to click Start iOS Simulator, or if you want to do Android, you could do that. And it should start up the emulator. And now you're going to click this little settings icon in Visual Studio Code. And it's going to start up this launch.json. You could just exit that. And now you're just going to click this little green button again. And now your app's going to launch. Our app successfully launched, and as you can see, like we defined in the code, we have one container taking half the screen width, and it's blue, and we have another container that takes half the width, and it's purple. If you have any errors, just leave them in the comments, and I'll try my best to help you out. Now that our app successfully ran, we can start building stuff like text fields and buttons to our app. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a text field in this container, and we're going to add a button so we can translate whatever's in the text field. So we're going to go into the first container that's blue, or whatever you color you chose, and you're going to add a child, and we're going to add a column. And what we're going to do is we're going to add children right here, so we can put multiple widgets inside this column. And we're just going to add a text field, and we're going to add a material button. So in the text, now if we save, it's going to use the hot reload feature, and it's going to create this text field, and you can interact with it. It doesn't show the button because we didn't put anything in there yet. So let's start doing that. So one thing that the button needs is a child, which we're going to give it a text. And in the text, you're going to put 2 double quotes, and you can type anything. So we're going to say translate. And the second thing it needs is an on pressed. and that's like whenever you press the button, it's going to do anything that you want it to do. And we're just going to put 2 parentheses and 2 curly braces for now. We're going to add on to this later. And if you save this, or actually no, we can add a color, and I'm just going to put white. So colors dot white. And if you save it, it's going to hot reload, and your button's going to be right there. But if we click it, it's not going to do anything because we didn't give it anything to do yet. Now that we have a button in our app, we have to add something to our text field, and it's called a text editing controller. And it basically lets us like manipulate and play around with the text inside the text field. And to do that, we're gonna go into our text field and then type in controller. And we're not gonna have a controller yet because we didn't define one. So we're gonna do that right now. So if you go into my homepage state, and on top of this class, you're gonna type in text editing controller, and then give it a name. I'm gonna call it text controller, and equals new text editing controller, and then end it with a semicolon. And now if we scroll back down, we can type in text controller, and now this text field has a controller, and we could change the text and stuff. Now that we have our first container set up, it's time to set up our second container, which is going to handle the translations. So just like the first container, what we can do is we could just copy all of this and we can paste it here. And all we have to do is just get rid of the text field and the material button. So in this one, what we want is a text widget. And we could put anything in here, so I'm just going to type in translation is here. And then what we also want is we want 2 buttons. One to copy whatever in here, and the other button just like clears everything inside the text field and it clears the translation. So we want a row of these buttons so they're right next to each other. So just like the column, it's going to be children, and then we're going to put 2 material buttons. So in this button, what we can do is we're going to give it a child, and we're going to give it an icon, and icons.clear, and yep. And on pressed, we're going to give it a function, an empty function. We can edit this later. And we're just going to copy this, paste into the second button, but we're going to change this to copy, content copy right here. And if we save this, we have our text right here, and our row is right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this look a little better. So what we can do for this is go into your column and then add this called main axis alignment and main axis alignment dot center. And what that's going to do is it's just going to center whatever's in the column. And we're also going to do this with our row. So we're just going to copy this and paste it into the row. And now our buttons are also centered. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the font size for this. So how you can do this is just edit this. And then add style. And we're going to add a text style widget. And font size, we're going to set it to something like 20. And save and hot reload. And it's got a little bigger. And yeah, that's our second container. Now that we have the basic structure for our app laid out, we can start giving our buttons functionality. One thing I want to address is this text widget we have right here. So what we did is we hard-coded it, which is basically give something like this text right here a value that can't be changed. Well, we can change it, but like we can't actually change it within our code, and that's what's called hard coding. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to set a variable, and we're gonna give it a string so we can actually change the value that's in here. So to do this, we're gonna do var and give a name. I'm gonna call it translated phrase and set it equal to an empty string right here. And we can replace translation is here with our translated phrase. And now we can change it with our code. We also have to call on our package that we imported so we can actually translate the phrases that we type into the text field. So how we're going to do this is we're going to call on it. So we're going to say var and then translator is going to be equal to Google Translator. And now that we have called it, we can use whatever it has to translate whatever we type into here. Now that we imported the Google Translator package into our project and we called on it, we can start translating whatever phrases are in the text field. So to do this, we're going to go to our translate button and we're going to go into this function that we defined earlier. And we're going to call the translator, so translator, and then dot translate. And then to get whatever text is in here, we use the controller that we defined earlier, so it's called text controller, and then dot text. And then we do from, and then whatever text is in here is default to like English, so we just put en. And then for this translator, I'll just do Spanish. So to do that, you just add another argument and do 2, and then the 2-letter thing for Spanish is es, and then after that you just do dot and then, and just like how we created a function right here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 2 parentheses, 2 curly braces, and we're gonna put T, and that T stands for translation. And then we're going to set the variable here, and we're going to set whatever translation we get back, and we're going to set it equal to translated phrase so it shows up over here. So we're going to do this by translated phrase is equal to T. And yeah, that's basically it. And also, whenever you like make a change to your app with Flutter, you're gonna have to call in this thing called set state, so it like rebuilds the app. So we're gonna cut this, and we're gonna paste it into here, and give it some space. And we're also gonna do the same thing over here, guys. And paste that. Oh, shoot. Translated phrase is equal to T. And let's test that out. So Command S or Control S, and then we can get rid of all this junk, and let's type in hello, click translate, and it says hola right here. Now that we gave functionality to our translate button, it's time to give functionality to our clear button and our copy button. So to do that, we're going to scroll down to our container, our second container, and we're going to go to our clear button and go into our function right here, and we're going to call in set state so we can see our changes that we make to the app. And we're going to set translated phrase equal to an empty string so it resets this. And we're also going to reset the text in the text field, and we're going to do that by text controller.text is equal to an empty string. And if we save that, if we clear this, it's going to clear whatever's here and in the text field. So that was pretty easy. And now for the copy button, what we're going to do is we're going to type in clipboard. And when we type in clipboard, it's going to auto import Flutter services. And the reason why we don't need to use our pubspec.yaml file is because this is like built into Flutter, and you can like call it whenever you need it. And we're just gonna do dot set data, and new clipboard data. And then we're going to set text equal to translated phrase. And end that with a semicolon. And just save and hot reload. Now, if we type hello, translate it, we can copy it by pressing the copy button. And if we delete this, and we can paste it right here, and it says hola, and we can just clear. So that's all we gotta do now with the buttons. We're finished with that. And in the next section, I'm going to show you how to style the app. One last thing I forgot to mention is that you can change the title of your app that's over here. And to do that, you just scroll up and go to the My App class. And where it says Flutter Demo, you can just change that to Translator and copy that. And also paste it over here. And now if you just hot reload and save, it's going to change the app title over here. If you found this video useful, please like the video and subscribe. And I'll be posting more Flutter videos and more app and game development videos in the future. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.